Before we continue, we'd love for you to subscribe to the Dip Dive podcast channel. Your support helps us grow and create even better content just for you. Thanks for being part of our journey. Okay, so have you ever hit that point where social media just feels less like, a fun escape and more like, ugh, like a draining obligation?
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah.
like you're constantly scrolling and comparing yourself to everyone else's uh, seemingly perfect lives.
Right. And then, you get that urge to just like delete everything and disappear.
Oh, yeah, like go off the grid completely.
But then, like 5 minutes later, you're back liking cat videos and commenting on your friends' vacation photos.
It's a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to cleanse, but then we always get sucked back in.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, that back and forth, that urge to cleanse, and then like the inevitable return.
It's a pretty common experience. In fact, this whole deep dive is actually inspired by this hilarious podcast script. It's called The Great Social Media Cleanse That Lasted 3 Hours.
I love that title.
Right. It totally captures the humor and the frustration of this whole social media detox thing.
It really does. Okay, so this script is so funny because it literally plays out like a scene we've all lived through. Like the first scene, the decision to detox, starts with this character, Lisa. She's like dramatically announcing her social media farewell.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. She's got like the inspirational quote, the artsy photo.
The whole shebang, like she's really going for it.
But then, the second she posts this grand declaration, all of her friends start bombarding her with concerned messages.
It's like they're staging an intervention for her digital departure.
Yeah, it's so funny, but it makes you wonder, right? Like, what's really behind these public declarations?
Right. Is it actually about taking a break? Or is it more about, like performing a certain image?
Yeah, like showing everyone how mindful and self-controlled we are.
Exactly. Like checking the healthy lifestyle box without actually changing any habits.
And there's actually research to suggest that publicly announcing goals can sometimes backfire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like we've already gotten that social reward for our good intentions, so we're less likely to actually follow through.
That's interesting. So, okay, let's say we do manage to power down our devices and resist that urge to broadcast it to the world.
Right, then what?
That's where scene 2 comes in. The struggle is real.
Uh-huh. This is my favorite part.
Because it's so relatable.
Totally. Like
Well-
the apps are gone, but our thumbs are still like twitching.
Totally. Like looking for that familiar swipe.
And in this scene, this guy, Jake, he starts meticulously reorganizing his spice cabinet.
Out of boredom.
Yeah, he's like desperate for something to do. It's such a funny visual, but I've totally been there.
It's like we've forgotten how to just like be without that constant digital stimulation.
It's true. Studies actually show that even short periods of boredom can like trigger anxiety.
Really?
Yeah, especially for people who are, super reliant on their devices.
It's like our brains don't know what to do with themselves.
Exactly. And that's probably why a lot of us end up back on social media sooner than we planned.
Makes sense. Like we just can't handle that discomfort.
Yeah, that feeling of restlessness, it leads us right to scene 3, the temptation.
Oh, here we go. This is where it all falls apart.
Right. The cracks in our willpower start to show. It could be anything, really. Like a friend mentioning a viral video.
Or like a big news story breaking.
Right. Or in this case, the script uses this hilarious example. It's this guy who suddenly gets this urge to check if his plants are thriving.
Wait, what?
Yeah, via Instagram, of course.
Okay, that is hilarious. But come on, we all do this, right? Like we come up with the most ridiculous justifications for logging back in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just need to see if anyone replied to my comment.
Or I'm just checking the weather. Like anything to convince ourselves it's not a full relapse.
Totally. But, it's not just about willpower.
What do you mean?
Like, those notification badges, the endless scroll, all those features, they're designed to trigger a dopamine response in our brains.
Oh, right, like a reward system.
Exactly. So it creates this, like, cycle of craving and reward that's super hard to resist.
So basically, we're fighting against our own brain chemistry.
Pretty much. It's no wonder those plants suddenly become so fascinating.
So what happens next? Like when we finally give in to that temptation.
That's where we enter scene 4, the grand return.
And things get a little awkward.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to pretend that nothing happened.
Like sliding back into our feeds as if we never left.
Exactly. And the script shows this with this character, Kaale, who comes back from her supposed detox by immediately posting memes about being back.
Like, Mac.
Exactly. As if nothing happened. But underneath that, there's often this sense of embarrassment, right?
Totally. Like we failed to stick to our goal.
And now we're back, caught in the same cycle.
But is it really a failure? It seems like the script is hinting at a different perspective.
You're right. And that's what we're going to unpack in the next part of our deep dive. We're going to delve into scene 5, the truth about detoxing.
Okay, so we've like followed these characters through their whole social media cleanse journeys, right?
Yeah, from those dramatic farewell posts to those boredom-induced spice cabinet reorganization.
Oh, yeah. And we can't forget about the inevitable return to the scroll. But, like, what does it all mean for us? The listeners who might be struggling with this same stuff.
That's where scene 5 comes in. It's called The Truth About Detoxing. And it kind of challenges this idea that, like, complete abstinence is the only way to have a healthy relationship with social media.
Makes sense.
Like maybe it's not about quitting cold turkey, you know?
Right. More about finding some kind of balance.
Exactly. It's like, think about dieting. It's
Right.
like the difference between crash dieting and, adopting a more like balanced approach to eating.
Oh, yeah, good point. One is like super restrictive and usually leads to that yo-yoing back and forth. And the other is more about, making mindful choices.
Exactly. And the script actually makes fun of this whole social media addiction thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's this one line that I just love. It's, I'm not addicted, I'm just very committed.
I love that. And it's so true, though, right? Like, we might not be clinically addicted, but there's definitely like this sense of compulsion.
Yeah. We feel like we need to be connected, even when it's like not doing us any favors.
So then what's the answer?
Well, that's where this concept of micro-detoxing comes in.
Micro-detox.
Yeah, so instead of like aiming for this week-long digital detox, which, let's face it, is pretty unrealistic,
Yeah.
you try incorporating these like small intentional breaks throughout the day or week.
Okay, I like that. More manageable. So, like, what would that look like?
Well, it could be as simple as just, silencing those notifications for a couple hours each day.
That's a good one.
Or like having a no-phone rule during meals.
I've actually tried that one, and it's pretty amazing how much more, like, present and connected you feel
Right.
when you're not constantly, checking your phone.
It's about like reclaiming those moments for real-life interactions and experiences.
Yeah, and also, like, retraining our brains to, find satisfaction and fulfillment outside the digital world.
Exactly.
That's a good one. But, let's be real, those notification badges, they are tempting.
Oh, yeah, they're like designed to hijack our attention.
It's true.
And that's why it's so important to understand how these platforms are like designed. Social media companies, they're masters at using these psychological tricks to keep us hooked.
Okay, so, like, what can we do about that?
Well, it starts with awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like pay attention to how social media makes you feel. Are you feeling stressed or, anxious or envious after scrolling through your feed?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think it's also important to, like, be honest with ourselves about why we're even using social media in the first place.
Absolutely. Are we genuinely connecting with people or are we just seeking validation?
Or trying to escape boredom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we find that, our social media use is mostly driven by like negative emotions or unhealthy comparisons,
Yeah.
then it might be time to like rethink our whole relationship with these platforms.
Like maybe unfollowing accounts that make us feel bad or, limiting our time on certain platforms.
Right. Or even like taking a longer break altogether.
Sounds like there's not like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Definitely not. It's about finding what works best for each individual,
Mhm.
right? Like their own needs and goals.
Totally. And giving ourselves permission to experiment, Try different things, see what sticks.
Yeah. And be kind to yourself if you, slip up. The goal isn't perfection. It's progress.
And I think it's also important to remember that, like, we're not alone in this.
Oh, yeah. Everyone has a complicated relationship with social media. Like,
Yeah.
talking about it openly and honestly can be super helpful.
We can, like, learn from each other's experiences and support each other in finding healthier ways to, navigate this whole digital world.
Totally. The more we talk about these issues, the less shame and isolation we'll feel.
And that's really empowering.
For sure.
Okay, so we've explored this whole cycle of the social media cleanse, the detox and return. We talked about the truth behind our relationship with these platforms and how important it is to find that balance that works for us. But, the script leaves us with this one final, like, thought-provoking question.
Oh, yeah. The one about whether true balance is even possible in a world where these platforms are, like, designed to keep us hooked.
Yeah, it's a big one. And I don't think there's, like, an easy answer.
No, definitely not. But it's a question we're thinking about.
That question, I mean, about finding true balance, it really got me thinking, like, if these platforms are designed to keep us hooked, are we fighting a losing battle here?
It's a valid question, and it can feel, I get it, a little disheartening. You're right. The design of these platforms is very sophisticated.
Right.
They use all these like, algorithms and psychological tricks to keep us engaged, keep us coming back for more. But I don't think it's hopeless. I really don't.
Okay, good. So, like, how do we avoid getting sucked in? Like, what can we actually do?
Well, I think, as we've said, it starts with awareness, like really paying attention to how you feel when you're actually using social media.
Right, like, are you feeling, I don't know, energized or connected? Or are you feeling drained and, like, just kind of, depleted?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that self-awareness is like the first step. But I also think it's about setting those boundaries, like really thinking about why you're even on social media in the first place.
Right, like, what are you hoping to get out of it? What are your intentions?
Yeah, once you actually know that, then you can start making those, more conscious choices.
Okay, so less passive scrolling, more, like, active engagement.
Right. So instead of just, mindlessly scrolling, maybe you actually set aside some time to connect with friends or like, follow accounts that actually inspire you.
Right, yeah. Or use those tools that the platforms actually provide.
Oh, absolutely. Like those screen time limits or, you know what I love? The mute button.
Oh, the mute button is amazing.
I've been like liberally using the mute feature lately, and it's been, such a game changer.
Right. You're not constantly bombarded by those notifications.
Exactly.
Okay, so mute those notifications, set those boundaries, be more intentional.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the power of like curating your feed.
Oh, that's a good one. Like unfollowing those accounts that make you feel bad or, trigger those negative comparisons.
Right. Fill your feed with, I don't know, things that lift you up, things that make you laugh or teach you something new.
Yeah, it's like decluttering your digital space.
Exactly. And just like, declutter your physical space can create that sense of calm and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing that in your digital space can have that same effect.
I like that.
But remember, it's an ongoing process, right? I mean, there will be times when you slip up.
Oh, for sure, for
You
sure.
get sucked back into the vortex.
Yeah,
You just got to be kind to yourself.
yeah.
It's okay.
We've all been there.
Every time you actually become aware of those patterns, you have this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
You can make a different choice next time.
Right. And, this whole conversation really highlights that, that self-compassion thing.
Oh, yeah. I think that's so important.
Like, we tend to beat ourselves up, when we don't achieve those goals perfectly. But maybe a gentler approach is actually more effective in the long run.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, these platforms, like we've been saying, they're designed to be addictive.
Right.
It is a constant battle to stay mindful.
Okay, so be kind to yourself, celebrate those small victories, and, don't be afraid to, like, keep experimenting.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so we've gone deep on social media cleanses. We explored this whole cycle of, detox and return, talked about, like, the truth behind our relationship with these platforms, how to find that balance that works for us. Do you have any, like, final thoughts?
I think just remember, you're not alone in all of this. Everyone's trying to figure out this whole social media thing. Just be kind to yourself. Stay curious.
Don't be afraid to experiment and, have those conversations with friends or family or even, like, a therapist.
Oh, yeah, for
Or
sure.
you're feeling really overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Good advice. And remember, social media can actually be a really powerful tool. I mean, for connection, learning, even activism, right?
Absolutely.
It's all about, like, using it consciously, intentionally, not letting it use us.
You got it.
Okay, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of social media cleanses. It's been so great chatting with you.
It has been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Like, what resonated with you? What are your own experiences with social media breaks? Share your stories, your reflections on our website or, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah. Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and happy scrolling. But, on your own terms.